Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, we'll have the latest from North Carolina, where several officers have been hit by gunfire. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s bid for the White House is getting plenty of attention from Donald Trump and President Joe Biden.
Plus, rain chances make a return tonight and on Tuesday. Those details coming up as Mountain News at 5:30 starts now.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. A tragic day in North Carolina's biggest city. Sources tell CBS News at least 3 law enforcement officers were killed while conducting an operation at a home in Charlotte. Other officers were injured and at least one suspect was found dead. CBS's Matt Piper has the latest on the investigation.
The shooting in East Charlotte happened as officers from several agencies and members of the U.S. Marshals Task Force were attempting to serve an arrest warrant. Authorities say multiple officers were carrying out an investigation in the quiet residential area when a subject began firing at them.
It sounded like World War III.
Daniel Melendez lives nearby and heard the shots.
You could tell a lot of people scared, a lot of people, it's like I live in this neighborhood for 10 years, never saw this, never thought it can even happen.
Several roads in the area were partially closed to traffic as ambulances rushed the victims to area hospitals.
Never happened this before in this area. Never expected to see so many police officers wounded, so many cars.
Police are telling people to stay inside their homes and avoid the area as the investigation continues. Matt Piper, CBS News.
And again, the latest word is that 3 people have been killed, 3 law enforcement officers, others hurt. We are expecting a news conference shortly in this half hour. We will monitor that, and of course there will be much more about this on the CBS Evening News coming up tonight at 6:30.
We are tracking some nice weather in our region to kick off this work week, but those rain chances are not far away. A live look this evening from the WYMT studios overlooking parts of Hazard. Not a cloud in the sky here in Perry County. That current temperature also mild for late April, up to 81, 82 for Manchester. Also in Pikeville, 79 for Jackson, and up to 84 over in Grundy, Virginia at this hour. Up on the radar, a clean sweep also continues, and that dry weather will stick around as we go into this evening. So if you have those plans, be sure to enjoy the dry and comfortable weather, because notice in western Kentucky, also pushing into parts of western Tennessee, we are tracking this weather system, and this moisture is moving slowly into our direction. Now, some good news, no severe weather, also no heavy rainfall issues, but we are tracking some off and on showers by late Monday, also pushing into your Tuesday. Those lows stay mild in the middle 60s, and some more hot weather is on the way by midweek. We could see some upper 80s by Thursday. More details on that warm up coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
All right, Cameron, thank you. Columbia University is being sued for reportedly not providing a safe environment for Jewish students. The legal action filed today by an anonymous Jewish student is seeking class action status. The lawsuit claims the university has become, quote, a place that is too dangerous for Columbia's Jewish students, unquote. This comes as the university decided to use a hybrid learning model as protests erupted last week. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is back in the Middle East. Blinken was in Saudi Arabia today. He says Israel must do more to increase the flow of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip, and that he would use this trip to belabor the point with Israeli leaders. More than 34,000 Palestinians have been killed since the war began last October. Warships from the U.S. and the Philippines Navy ships have been conducting live fire target practice off the west coast of the Philippines. It's part of annual war games between the two allies named Balikatan, which means shoulder to shoulder. But China opposes the military operation in an area it claims sovereignty over, and Beijing has sent its own navy to shadow these drills. A Chinese spy ship came close to a U.S. Navy vessel, causing the exercise to not be completed. While President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump duke it out for the White House, they also have their eyes on a serious third-party challenge from Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who could serve as a spoiler in this November's presidential election. Gray Television's White House correspondent John Decker reports.
He's got a famous last name with an impressive family background. Now Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is hoping that background will catapult him to the White House.
And I do have a big family, about 105 Kennedys.
RFK Jr. is polling in the low double digits in most polls, but some election insiders say that may be just enough to serve as a spoiler in the 2024 election.
The Democrats are taking Kennedy seriously. They really do see him as a threat, and they're devoting significant resources and attention to trying to tear down his candidacy.
At a recent Biden campaign event in Philadelphia, more than a dozen members of the extended Kennedy family stood alongside President Biden, declaring who they will support in November.
We want to make crystal clear our feeling that the best way forward for America is to re-elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to 4 more years.
The Trump campaign has also started to pay attention to RFK Jr.
RFK Jr. is, as you know, the most radical left candidate in the race.
Fearful that he could spoil Donald Trump's chance to return to the White House.
I think they are coming to that realization. Trump talks about Kennedy now in ways that he did not even a couple of weeks ago. He even mentioned Kennedy's vice presidential pick, Nicole Shanahan, in a video that he posted to Truth Social last week. It is on his mind. The campaign is sending out emails to reporters about Kennedy, trying to paint him as a super liberal, drawing attention to his environmental record, his past support for abortion rights, things like that.
Kennedy's support is expected to decline as the November election approaches. That's historically what happens with third-party candidates. But in a close election, Kennedy's presence could make a difference in key battleground states that ultimately will decide this year's election. At the White House, I'm John Decker.
Well, right now, RFK Jr. is on the ballot as an independent presidential candidate in 3 states, Utah, Michigan, and Hawaii. His campaign says it's working to get him on the ballot in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. For years, there have been a handful of states that have ultimately decided presidential elections, among them Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. A new CBS News poll finds them tight contests yet again in all of them, just like 2020. And that means a tight race overall, since these could swing the Electoral College. Anthony Salvanto, who is CBS News Director of Elections and Surveys, says a lot of voters are going to be watching former President Trump's current New York trial moving forward.
Republicans who are overwhelmingly behind Donald Trump come down on this side, the idea that those charges are politically motivated. What a lot of people are going to be watching going forward, depending on the outcome of this trial, is whether any of that changes and whether it changes any votes.
House Speaker Mike Johnson's job hangs in the balance because of a revolt by hardline Republicans. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is among a group infuriated by his move to pass a major foreign aid package over their objections. This evening, the House returns to session following a week-long recess, with Johnson possibly facing an ouster over the chamber's move to pass billions of dollars in aid for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. Former Trump advisor Peter Navarro's quest to get out of jail has been denied again. The Supreme Court denied Navarro's request to avoid further prison time over his contempt of Congress conviction. This comes after he submitted an emergency request in March asking the Supreme Court to let him remain free while he challenged his conviction. That request was denied March 18th, and Navarro reported to prison the following day. The Supreme Court has agreed to hear the case of a former commercial truck driver who says he was fired after he used CBD. Douglas Horn said he tried a product advertised as a CBD elixir that did not contain THC. Weeks later, he was fired after he failed a drug test. Horn, who said he's never used marijuana, filed a lawsuit accusing Medical Marijuana Incorporated of violating the Controlled Substances Act and engaging in mail and wire fraud. Lawmakers in Minnesota have stripped State Senator Nicole Mitchell of her committee assignments during an ongoing criminal investigation. Last week, police arrested Mitchell and charged her with burglary. Prosecutors accuse her of breaking into the home of her stepmother following her father's recent death. Mitchell denies the charges, Police say she told them she was just trying to get some of her late father's belongings that her stepmother refused to give to her. Florida's 6-week abortion ban is set to take effect Wednesday. The new law overrides the state's current 15-week ban. This will likely affect thousands of women in and out of state seeking abortion care. According to the state health agency, so far this year, more than 1,300 people have traveled to Florida for an abortion. There's still the possibility that the restriction could change again come November. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, credit card debt was up nearly 16% from last year, from 2022, according to the latest data. How to handle shame around debt.
Plus, we are starting May on a warm note. Your first alert forecast after this break.